Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hi everybody, Matt Guy here with Wolves Fan Cast, sponsored by the 90 Minute Network and the Sports Shop in Kings Winford. I'm joined by Gully, Adam and Kim to discuss the hammering, even though the scoreline might not have suggested it, and the humbling of Aston Villa Football Club in yesterday's game. How are we, everybody?
Oh, fabulous.
Fabulous.
Lovely after that.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't know if anyone can, maybe for the audio listeners, a little cracking. Can we get that on the audio? Just a little.
You've been storing that up, haven't you, for the last half
bit.
an hour?
Yeah. I prepped that one, to be fair. But cheers to what was an excellent result, everyone.
Absolutely. It's one of those things, really, where on the outset and on the outside, we were really, really worried about, like I know I was going into the game. Worried about more the reaction of what it's going to be when I go back to work like the following days and the panic around that. But I mean, from you guys, what was your expectations going into the game before we look at the lineup? What was the kind of expectation?
I guess it was, yeah. Look, anybody who's missing Raul Jimenez and Ruben Neves from their starting lineup will probably have a degree of trepidation about, going into this game. We just suffered a slightly humiliating defeat, to be honest, against the poor Leeds team. We'd had two weeks to kind of stew over it, and I think the longer that time goes on, everyone just starts to fear the next fixture. You almost want, after a game like that, you want to get a game in as soon as possible to get the crap out of your system, but it was allowed to fester over what was not the most exciting international week, as is usually the case. And as a result, yeah, like you say, people weren't necessarily that enthused about our prospects. But I don't know, Villa aren't as good a team as people probably lead you to believe. They seem to have had this weird crest of a wave in terms of media coverage because Steven Gerrard's now at the club, Philip Coutinho has joined, and apparently they're on the march again. And I kept checking the league table to see where they were for a while, and they weren't really making any inroads on it. So should we have been as worried as we were? In hindsight, probably not.
Well, this is one of the things, but I guess that takes us nicely, I suppose, to looking at the lineup. So it was a Wolves Dars wet dream or nightmare, I guess you could say. There were some stalwarts in there that the Wolves Dars would absolutely have detested. So we had Dendoncker, Trincao and Silva in the lineup, which rightly or wrongly have faced a barrage of abuse over social media over the last few weeks / months. Price, from your point of view, looking at that lineup, one, contentious decision before the game maybe was who were we going to be looking at right wing back. The lineup for you, how did it feel in the build-up?
There's a couple of players there which, like, normally whenever we see them on the team sheet, that it provokes a bit of angst, and I think Marcel's probably the one which provokes the most, because a lot of people want to see Ait-Nouri in fact, for good reason as well. But I think, as I said before, with Marcel, he is what he is. He doesn't do anything spectacularly wrong of a game, but nor does he ever in danger of winning the Man of the Match award. I think normally for home games, you kind of like to see Ait-Nouri playing because he's we have him down as a more attacking fullback, but Marcel is the old wiser head. Well, he's supposed to be that kind of role as the more experienced professional at the two. So my thoughts initially was maybe I would have liked to have seen Ait-Nouri. Obviously, Marcel did himself no harm with the game that he played, but obviously the one for me being Trincao, I've obviously made my views on Trinquer quite known in previous pods, and to be honest, I wasn't part of the queue of all Wolves fans that were rushing to nosh him off after his Leeds game, because it's just one game basically, isn't it?
There were a few, weren't there, Adam? It's true.
There were a few, I've still spot them online, and I think, come on, one swallow doesn't make a summer. Oh, talking about noshing and swallowing. I've got to rally back in a bit now.
Something Freudian going on here, Price.
We were meant to go live at 9 p.m. actually after the watershed.
Fancast after dark. But look, he had a great game against Leeds. That was, that to try and argue otherwise would just be stupid. But come on, it was just one game for Trinquer, and I think for me, I still don't particularly trust him that much. So I would have gone with the different option. But hey, those are my two main contentious ones. We always knew Fabio was going to play, so no problems there. Podence is a starter all the time there anyway, so no issues there. And of course, Moutinho and Dendoncker were obviously going to be starting as it was, and yeah. So for me, it was just a left back and the forward line, which were sort of my two contentious issues.
Yeah, Kim, we all play armchair manager, beer or non-alcoholic drink in hand before the game. Were there any changes that you would have made? I know in hindsight is 2020, but before the game, were there any changes that you would like to have seen? With Semedo and Neto, being declared fit to play beforehand.
I think actually Semedo was quite an interesting one, because I think Johnny has slotted it in so well the last few games. I think there wasn't really an argument, just because I think he's been really, since he's come back, he's really starting to look match sharp and back to his old self. So I don't think, at the time, I didn't think, why is Semedo not starting? And I think moving forward, that'll be interesting to see how both sort of wing backs develop. And then I suppose, as you guys have said, in midfield, what could we have done? I was really worried about our centre midfield up against Villa's on paper. I thought, we could get overrun here. Obviously, that wasn't the case. And yeah, I guess the Trincao debate at the time, I did think, Trincao starting sort of thing, and I'm not massively convinced either. But I think it was the right decision, considering Neto still doesn't look completely match sharp. And Hwang's obviously just come back from injury. So I think that was a right formation. So unfortunately, he was kind of the only option really to at least start, and then obviously bring on Hwang and Neto as and when, which he did. So I think overall you couldn't complain. My major gripe was the Marcel to Aït-Nouri switch, but then I guess that's just because I've got Aït-Nouri in my FPL team as well, so that just really annoyed me that he wasn't starting it again.
Well, it's a curious case, isn't it, Aït-Nouri? Depending on where you read or where you consume your information, people would say he doesn't have the engine for 90 minutes, at all, if not playing 2 games in a week kind of thing. But when he has played this season, he has shone, and he's really shown himself to be a star player and a star attraction for us. So it's going to be curious. I'd love to be fly on the wall in training and see what happens with him and why Lage doesn't, bring him in every game, because, Marcel is as good as stamped his ticket, out the door already. So I don't know. It's a strange one, really. It's a strange one. But, the game started off with a bang. Chances. And Johnny ended up getting on the score sheet after a bit of a scramble in front of goal. This really was a reward for a barrage that we put against Villa, in the opening 10 minutes there. From your point of view, it clearly, we were in the ascendancy and we deserved to score. But what did you like most about the goal, Price? Obviously, it was, he's becoming a bit of a habit for Johnny now, which is obviously what we want. But the goal itself, well worked. Talk us through it.
Well, right now, looking at that photo online, the thing I like most is Johnny's thighs. Look at them. Look at them thighs he's got there.
He's a tank.
Man does not. He just not miss a leg there, does he? In the gym, does Johnny? Do you know what? The goal itself, it just well worked, wasn't it? I think there was. I think it broke from midfield, didn't it? And Moutinho, and not this wouldn't be his only time where he'd break through from midfield and go on a bit of a marauding run. I think he popped it out wide, didn't he? I think there was slight element of fortune, I think, from what I can remember, because I think the ball was basically going through to Conser, wasn't it? And he slipped and...
Yeah, he slipped.
And...
poetically so.
Poetically so, yeah. And then Podence and Silva had the chances. Probably, I think Silva could have probably been a bit more... had a bit more tenacity about his shot, but it didn't really matter. But that finish from Johnny, I think I heard on the highlights afterwards. It's on his fifth goal in over 100 games for us. So obviously scoring's not his forte, but that is 2 and 2 for him now. Amazing finish.
It's an underrated finish, isn't it? As well, that finish. It's quite underrated, especially for a fullback.
I think the thing is We'd almost messed the whole situation up, really, hadn't we? With dilly-dallying to actually get a shot away. And the fact it was put away, it put you at ease, but that was no chance, no sense of a gimme there when it dropped to him. It's not like he's, absolutely dead set to finish that one. So fair play to him for striking it as well as he did, because I always thought that, the weakest part of his game was always going forward, kind of prior to him coming back from his injury and playing left side, generally speaking, he'd get into the final third and not necessarily be so clinical or creative even. So for him to be doing that on the right hand side, when in theory you've got a player like Semedo who we would have expected that from over the last kind of 18 months, just goes to show what a class footballer he is. Really, he's really stepped up, and I'm hoping maybe even there's a Spain call up for him at the World Cup at the end of this year. Who knows?
Absolutely, it would be great to see. Well, it was an absolute rocket when you look back on the highlights of it. It was, it was one of those goals where you just think to yourself, it's a cliche. Can you score too early? Do you then sit back? But actually, it was chances and chances and chances, and as I mentioned before, an absolute barrage. Kim, obviously, we attacked and we hit Villa hard. Was it a case for you that Villa were playing terribly and were defensively liable, or did you think it was actually our strength in attack that pushed us on and made us create so many chances? Because you could hear from the Molyneux faithful, digging into Mings, saying about if he can play for England, so can I. It was. What did you think about the chances we created? Should we have scored more, or actually, was the balance of play, 50-50 for you?
I think it's a bit of both in terms of, I think Villa they are all over the shop defensively. I think at times I couldn't quite believe how open they were in the first half. It was almost like they were just, I don't know, they'd lost their heads and they were just going out all attack, and they just were desperate to try and get a goal, but weren't creating anything, but just pushed up so high that it felt like just one ball was going to get us through. And I think that happened quite a few times. I think there's with the Fabio chance where he was virtually through, maybe should have done better. But saying that, I think we did look really, really good going forward. I think the Podence Silva sort of partnership has kind of looked good in previous games. And to be honest, I was just so surprised how well Moutinho did. And I was one of these people that I know quite a lot of Villa fans, work with quite a few here and there, and live all around where I live's Villa. And the conversations leading up to the game, I was just so worried about us in midfield. With Moutinho's obviously an amazing player, but he ain't getting any younger. Dendoncker's been a bit up and down. I haven't been his biggest fan, but again, he looked really good, really getting stuck in. But Moutinho was just. He was almost just like running the show, what you'd expect Neves to do. So yeah, just an unbelievable performance, and the icing on the cake would have been just to put the game to bed, I guess, before half time, but we didn't. So
yeah, absolutely. Comments coming in there from some of the people watching live with us about some players are missing, and we still are creating chances, and we're still performing at a higher level. A little bit more similar to how we kind of played in the first 3 games. I'm sure Gully will talk through that in his excellent GTA series. from your point of view, Gully, we're bombarding forward, we're creating chance after chance after chance. That one that falls to Silva, where actually in hindsight he could have potentially have cut it back. He's gone for goal. I think striker's instinct. We'll allow him that. What were your thoughts going forward in terms of our attack? It was it was really exciting to see.
It was really, really promising. I think while Raul's absence was clearly enforced, it was about time that Fabio got a run in the side, because he has looked promising every single time he's come on in games. I think Bruno hinted at the fact that he probably would have played a little bit more, given he's had to make some enforced substitutions and he would have had a few more cameo appearances. But I just don't see why he can't be trusted with at least an hour on the pitch from the start of a game. And I think he went on to prove that he is capable of at least matching Jimenez's levels. I think in the first half he probably offered more than Jimenez has in weeks. In this game in particular, especially with kind of his all-round game. That's what I liked about it most. He seemed to link up really nicely with Trincao and Pedence. They've got a good understanding individually. I think he seems to be like best mates with Trincao, and Pedence and him have always looked really promising together as a partnership. But the chances, I think he's probably trying to be a little bit too precise with his finishes. Both were a bit safe, especially the one where he beat Mings to the ball and he tried to side foot it near post. He kind of made Martinez's job quite easy there. But all round, I think driving with the ball, you just saw him carrying the ball distances and stuff you just wouldn't have imagined him doing last season. So you can see his game coming on leaps and bounds at the moment.
He just needs games, doesn't he, in general, doesn't he? He just needs... This is what is needed, just running the team. And people have spoken before about we need to loan him out or whatever, but I don't think that's the right thing for him. He just needs games in this team to get better and develop. I'm not sure loaning him out either to Europe or as we talk about championship loans. I just think that's not the right... I don't know. It wouldn't feel like the right thing to do with him. I know he's got Raul ahead of him, which makes game time for him very, very difficult, because if Jimenez is fit, he's going to play. But that's to come a time now when serious consideration is given, because Jimenez is not the Jimenez of old. We all have saw that this season. He's not the same player. He's making rash decisions on the pitch. Whether that's connected to his injury or not, we don't know. But he's had two, questionable red cards this season where you think, what are you actually doing? The time comes when you think, well, okay, do we now put our stock in Fabio? He's the one that we bought for the future. He's the project. He's the long-term investment. I'm not saying it's now, but at some point, it needs to be a question asked, maybe in the summer, that, who do we invest our time in going forward in the team? And obviously, he's had the Villa game yesterday. He's got the Newcastle game as guaranteed starts, guaranteed game time. He's got to make Bruno think and give him an option.
Going back to Fabio for a second, I think what was really pleasing to see is his physicality. He was so tenacious, and he had Mings on toast at one point. Whether that was a lack of concentration from Mings' point of view, but he out-muscled him off the ball. Unfortunately, he did spurn the chance that he created for himself. But Kim, from your point of view, what do you see in 6 to 12 months' time Fabio Silva's strengths being for us? What potential do you see in him? What kind of player do you think he's going to end up being for us?
I think, firstly, I agree with you, Matt. I think I know Mings isn't the most highly rated defender. However, one of his strengths is how strong he is, and the fact that so many times he was literally Fabio was bustling Mings off the ball like he wasn't there, was quite surprising. And I think if you look back to when he first started in the team, he looked really, really not strong, would get pushed off the ball. He's almost like Trincao does now still. But he's clearly just working on his strength and overall game. And I think in 6 to 12 months, he's like from when he started to where we are now, I think he's improved ridiculously. So I think it's quite unfair to almost start judging him because he hasn't had the game time. And obviously he does need to take his chance. He's got 2 games and and really needs to be putting the ball in the net. But for me yesterday, it was a complete performance apart from putting the ball in the net. There's two or three chances where you thought this is going to be it. Before the game, I was almost saying, right, this is the time if Fabio finally, makes his arrival, and I think he did. But unfortunately, he just didn't put the ball in the net again. But I'm convinced it's going to happen against Newcastle. I can feel it. His
You can feel
confidence
it, yep.
is sky high, isn't it? Now after that performance, you'd like to think. So I feel like it is coming. But yeah, I feel like as long as he gets enough game time in the next 6 to 12 months, which you'd like to think he will, because we can't just consistently carry on with Raul, who we all know isn't the same player as he was. So maybe we just need to start interchanging them a bit more, and even looking at playing both. Should we ask? I don't know, but he just needs a bit more game time. So I don't think he's gonna really blossom enough to be a regular first teamer if he doesn't get that experience and time on the pitch.
Yeah, I'd agree. So moving on, as the game progresses, Wolves continue to attack, and we did make it 2 thanks to some comedic heading supremacy by Young there for the own goal. For all of the talk before the game, Marçal whipping in a wonderful ball. Gully, you're a defender. Is there any justification for what's happened there? Is he just, should he be going for that header? Should he be trying to clear it? Is he just making sure that, the Wolves man doesn't get on the end of it from the defenders union? Talk me through it.
Well, you wouldn't see me doing anything like that. Bloody hell, I've been spotlighted here. Well, for start, I just wanted to point out the fact that we've seen off another Villa left back because Luca Dean got substituted. So even without Adama Traore, we're still we're going through them like knives through butter, as they say. But I think credit has to go to Marçal for the cross. It was unbelievable, and I think it's something that's been overlooked that he actually is a lot more competent in the final third now. He seems to be brought that part of his game on quite a bit. So fair play to him. It was an awkward cross to deal with. What I would say is it wasn't really the ideal penalty area to deliver a ball into, because Trincao was kind of the only one that was able to really maybe get on the end of anything. But because of the nature of the delivery, the awkwardness of the bounce on the ball, and yeah, Trincao, fair play to him. He's if he doesn't put that pressure on Young, he could probably play out, let the ball run across his body and play out. But that pressure, the run from Trincao to get across his man, has forced Young to make a decision. And once you're putting defenders in that kind of scenario, anything can happen. And yeah, he didn't cover himself in glory, did he? But top bins, wasn't it? Really, I think it was a great finish.
One of the comments there saying about how it was a danger ball, and it really was a great ball that was whipped in. Adam, from your point of view, the goal going in, making it 2-0, where were you thinking? So in the back of my mind, all I could think was, great, we're 2-0 up. This is fantastic. Last week we've been here before, and this result, the reverse fixture, is this the negative? The pessimist in me thought, right, I'm not overly happy yet. Where were you at 2-0 in terms of your squeaky bum time?
I think I was riding the crest of the wave at that point. To be honest, I'd had the game gone up until that point. I just thought we could run away with it here at this point. I think by the time it was 2-0, I think Villa might have had that one effort from Leon Bailey, I think, so I had to tip over. I think my timelines might be wrong, but other than that, I didn't really see much danger from Villa. Watkins hadn't really got any sights on goal by that point. I thought we were controlling play in the middle of the park. I generally thought we could go on to get 3 or 4 here potentially if we keep doing what we're doing. No reason why we shouldn't. I think the guy next to me said, I don't like 2-0, most dangerous score in football, which is not a really theory that I subscribe to be honest. I think it's one of them football cliches that come out from time to time. I'd rather be 2 up than not, to be honest. But Yeah, I know it's a bit of a cliche that gets thrown there, but the guy next to my right, he was quite nervous. You know, no, I'm still not convinced we can go on and win this game. But I think they've probably still got the reverse fixture in mind, where there are instances can get to be 2 up, as we found out, and lose 3-2. But no, at that point, I was just thought, we've got them, as you said, we've got them on toast really here. I don't really see anything unless we decide to take our foot off the gas and try and play a containment game and let them back in. I thought we could really put them to the sword here.
Absolutely. So we go into the break 2-0 up. Kim, at this point now, are you making any changes? I was texting the group, and I was texting a mate at half time, just saying that I potentially would have wanted Hwang to come on in place of Podence, maybe just to give us a bit more physicality in case we did want to play this kind of a containment, in case we didn't want to go for a third. Was there anything in the back of your mind where any changes needed to be made, or because we were so dominant,
everything had gone pretty much as of planned, obviously, apart from probably just needing to put the ball in the net a little bit more. I think it's difficult to say that we should have changed anything just because it was going so well. I think in the back of my mind, I was just thinking, not to make him a scapegoat or anything. I feel like Trincao, there was a few times where he was just getting knocked off the ball, and if we'd have just been a bit sharper, and just laid it off a bit quicker. So I thought, if we could bring on Hwang, Neto, because it's a local derby, they're going to come at us. They couldn't have been any worse than they were in the first half. So you'd have thought that we're going to have a few opportunities to break on them. So you'd have liked to have thought that if you'd have brought on Neto maybe a little bit earlier, or even Hwang. Hwang, although he drifts in and out of games, you feel like if he does get a chance, he's likely to at least hit the target, which obviously he didn't on the one shot that he had. But I feel like he just makes more things happen generally than Trincao. So that would have been my only change. But it's difficult to say. It was always going to be unlikely that Bruno was going to make a change at half time. But I just think maybe he could have brought on Neto and Hwang a little bit earlier than he did, just to almost finish the game off. Because I was a little bit less optimistic, and it was nothing to do with really what was happening on the pitch. I was just freaking out that we'll still probably throw this away. I think a bit of Leeds in the back of my head, a bit of obviously what we did to Villa in the reverse fixture. I don't know. I was just getting a bit panicky, and obviously when they scored the penalty, it wasn't. It was a very nervy last few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talking about the penalty, nice segue. The penalty decision itself, contentious, controversial, calamity from the referee. If I could think of anything else beginning with C, I will. You read, the response on social media for this. People are saying, Raul was sent off for this. I don't know where to begin with it, because from my point of view, Watkins knows exactly what he's doing here. The ball is nicked away, but he changes his run. He changes his direction only slightly to make sure he initiates contact with Sarr here, to give the referee as much of a chance as physically possible of giving the penalty. I think it's the right thing to do from his point of view, because, if you can cheat, do. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. However, from your point of view, was it a penalty? Wasn't it a penalty? Is there any take off the Wolves spectacles for a moment? Is there any justification for it from anyone on the show here?
No, none of it makes sense to me. To be honest, none of this makes sense at all.
I think it does make sense, Adam. It makes sense that referees are incompetent, because we all understand that, don't we?
Well, this is the thing. That would have been checked, would it have not? On the old screens in the tactics truck, the VAR truck, and they still come to the conclusion that that's a penalty, which it's just yet another like nail in the coffin for our officials in this league. like the biggest, best league in the world, but with the worst set of officials behind it. That's not even in any doubt now, is it? I don't think anyone on this show or anyone who watches and listens to us can argue otherwise. That our officials are just dog shit, basically, because they're continually getting decisions wrong, like week after week. Nothing about that what happened there with Watkins and Sarr says to me or to any of us penalty. It just doesn't. It's just a coming together, as was the Jimenez one against Leeds, which I didn't think that there was no cards needed for that challenge either. That was just fix him up, get up, carry on with the game. This was the same. Yeah.
If anything, Watkins actually goes into Sarr.
Yeah.
This is what confused. Like, I've literally watched it about 50 times without my rose-tinted Wolves glasses on, and I genuinely can't understand it. Like, I don't even get what the justification is for giving it.
I do think, yeah, I've always got this. I don't like the idea of using refereeing decisions to. I mean, clearly we won the game. We've probably not given ourselves the best chance because we should have been 3 or 4-0 up anyway in the game, and this penalty should have just been a footnote rather than giving us the kind of jitters and the nerves that it did in the end. But I always think you have to referee a game on its merits. I know there's all this talk about consistency across decisions in different games and stuff like that. The problem I had with the referee mostly in this game was that he just lost control of it for the last probably 20 minutes entirely. You know, he was giving little shitty free kicks all the time, almost in a way of appeasing Villa because they were probably the more anxious of the two teams to make something happen, obviously, because they were behind in the game. And they were in his face a lot more. You know, John McGinn was basically refereeing that second half. You know, I think there was a situation where Johnny was probably on a yellow card, tried to get him sent off, little things like that. And it just felt like the referee was, okay, he might not send Johnny off, but the next decision would go Villa's way as a way of saying, okay, look, that's fine. But, you know, I'm helping you out a little bit here. And it's far too emotionally led. And that's, I mean, I can kind of almost forgive the odd big decision being a mistake because I can see to a certain extent why it might be given, but ultimately referees aren't managing 90 minutes well enough. That's I think the crux of the issue, and then you lead to bigger decisions and bigger problems as a result of that.
Yeah, I think for the penalty decision, I don't necessarily think in the grand scheme of things, the referee is to share the majority of the blame. I think the VAR official, you know, in real time, that collision comes together so quickly. He's made the decision, but referees are now being given the opportunity to make mistakes and get away with it because they think that they're going to get the rub of the green from the VAR, you know, whereas actually they've given the decision and VAR have just agreed with him almost straight away. There was no lengthy review, and we want that in the game. We don't want the game to be paused for 2-3 minutes at a time. But how quickly they came to that decision for me is absolutely bizarre. But I mean, Gully, you're right. He lost control of the game really, really quickly. You know, this isn't, or at least in my opinion, you know, a derby compared to other derbies that we have, but it is a Midlands derby for us. And the game did have a little bit of that towards the end. There was a little bit of toing and throwing and handbags at dawn. You know, we did have a bit of pushing and shoving. The crowd were getting on top, you know, against each other. It did have that feel towards the end, which was, you know, considering it was WrestleMania this weekend, getting the blood pumping from my point of view. Did you think that anything... Were you worried about kind of a red card? Was there a fear of it boiling over, Price, you know, about this? Or, you know, we've got some senior heads there. We've got, you know, Connor Cody running the show. Was it just much ado about nothing for you?
What I would say, I mean, it felt like this was a game that the crowd were up for. I mean, I wasn't at the Leeds games, but so... For me, this was the first time in a while which I thought the crowd were really up for a game. You know, we've had for quite a long time this season the crowd, the atmosphere's been a bit flat for quite a large number of games really. But this was one where the the South Bank were on form. They were leading the chance for the game, throughout the game. Sorry, it felt like we were up for it. That translated to the players. We didn't really see anything too handbaggish in the game until, like I said, the last 20 odd minutes where, the referee totally lost control. I think there was a bit of an element of let's try and get a Wolves player sent off. You could see that. You could definitely, that was coming through quite clear. Some very questionable decisions as well from the refs. A sort of blatant fouls on our players going basically without any infractions, and then just some calls going blatantly the opposite way. I couldn't even get my head around it, to be honest. But it did feel that last 20 minutes that it filtered down to the players, and we thought, this is turning what we kind of want it to be almost. We want it. We even
saw Hwang making like physical challenges. Like he couldn't be further away from a tackle normally, and he was fighting with John McGinn.
It felt like, again, that spurred the crowd on even more. From my recollection, it felt like this is a proper bit of a derby ding dong here, which is I think what we all paid to see.
I think Dendoncker's got the role of enforcer, hasn't he? He seems to be right in the thick of it whenever there's a bit of a ruckus.
Well, I can't remember who was right towards the end of the game. Someone was out starting on Dendoncker big time. I can't remember which Villa player it was now, but he probably in that picture now, which YouTube viewers can see. Yeah, he was right in the thick of it. Could have been Conser then. That was squaring up to him.
I mean, from what I know, Dendoncker grew up on like a farm back in Belgium or something. He's probably wrestling with cows as a kid. Like, why would you want to get stuck in with him?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if Fabio is the Don, then Dendoncker definitely is the Luca Brasi of this team, so that's for sure. Moving on to obviously fantastic. We win the game. We hold on. We win the game. I think for maybe 5 minutes after their penalty, Villa pressed, but actually I think we held on really well in the end. It didn't feel anywhere near as panicky. I said after the Leeds game that sports scientists could use that footage as what happens when heads go in a game, when confidence dips. But I didn't actually feel that. We controlled it really, really well, despite the referee and Villa's intentions. I want to give a bit of praise to one midfield maestro who gave a performance, who keeps performing. And for some people at some point of the season have said we should take him out the back like old Yeller, and that would be Moutinho. He just keeps giving the goods. What a performance in the middle of the park. He just dictated play. Physically was up there. We have to think about offering him a new contract and keeping him in the squad. Do we not, Kim?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, prior to this game, I was a little bit worried, I must say. But I think looking back, it's the type of game that Moutinho tends to deliver. However, I think just looking at Villa's midfield on paper prior to the game, you could sense that Moutinho could have one of those games where it may have passed him by. He loves a missed time tackle, but I felt like everything that he touched was just pure class yesterday. I feel like he would, he really, really took the game by the scruff of the neck and really did amazingly. And I just can't understand why we wouldn't give him a new contract next year. Even I like to think that he won't start every game like he has this year, because he ain't the youngest now, is he? Let's be honest. But I think just his experience around the squad, and if we were to get into Europe, we obviously need a little bit of a bigger squad, and I just can't understand any reason why we wouldn't give him a new contract. And if he does, I'm pretty sure if he plays, is it like 20 odd more games, that Wolves is the team that he's played for most in his career?
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be a good touch, wouldn't it? To be fair.
Oh man, he'd have to get his Black Country citizenship then, wouldn't he?
Get his statue.
Someone brings in like a cone of orange chips onto the pitch for him and just give him shakers. I mean, Gully, always had your finger on the international game as much as you had the domestic game. From your point of view, Moutinho is playing some of the best football that I can remember in his career at Wolves, and yesterday, proved that he's potentially one of the best we've ever had. I think. What will be, come the end of the season, will you be clamouring for a new deal for him? Do you still think he has a position in this squad, or in the inevitable reshuffle that we end up having, as all teams do organically? Do you think the time would be right to start, phase him out, move him on, bring in bleeding new younger talent?
I don't think you could cut ties entirely. I think Portugal are actually finding that they're struggling to replace him. He started both games in the week that they, two crucial games to make sure that they're qualified for the World Cup in a squad that's totally, littered with talent as well. So, but they need that player in there who's going to take that responsibility and step up when required. And João does that for us. He maybe does take a little bit of a backseat when Ruben Neves is around, but he obviously knew he wasn't around this week, so I think he took it upon himself to ensure that he was really going to be in the thick of it, dictating terms and stamping his authority on the game. What I think I love about him is that he can kind of turn his hand to any part of that midfield role, and we haven't really got anyone like that. Him and Ruben, we do. I mean, kind of, work in tandem, but. If Moutinho needs to get dirty and get a little bit ragged in the middle, he can do it. If he needs to provide a quality pass, he can do that. He's averaged a couple more goals this season, which is almost unheard of. But aside from probably the goal scoring, he's an indispensable member of the squad. And I'd hate the idea of us going cold turkey on him kind of in the summer. Just going without.
Absolutely. So kind of moving on to kind of wrap up the game itself. Price, from your point of view, Dendoncker has suffered some criticism through the season, some justified, some not. He had a corker, I've got to admit, in this game. I think he played really, really well. And in some darker corners of the internet, mainly Stu Hall, there's shouts for him to be
the darkest corner of the
darkest
internet,
of dark corners of the internet. Calls for man of the match. How did you assess Dendoncker's performance in the game, and does he come close to your man of the match?
Yes, he does. He does come very close. Doesn't get it, but he comes very, very close indeed. He was class. He was brilliant yesterday. I always think with the Dendoncker hate, it just depends what you're expecting from Dendoncker. If you're expecting box to box player who's going to get on the end of crosses and arrive late and score goals, I don't think he does that. But what you ask him to do, what he does do is very effective. He's there to be effectively a destroyer in midfield. He's there to, when you ask him to break up play, he'll do that. He's not going to hit raking, cutting through balls like a Neves can. But personally, I just don't really see why he rolls people up so much. That I just don't understand. Maybe they're expecting some things from him that they're missold him. Basically, they're missold what they think Dendoncker was when we bought him. I know he took a while to get into the team when he first signed, and I don't know. Maybe some people just don't trust him as much, or think that Neves and Moutinho should be here too, and that's that. And we even spoke about on pods in the past where we've said that Neves and Moutinho don't work together. It's got to be Dendoncker who plays alongside one of them. We've gone up and down with this before on talking about Dendoncker, but I just don't see why he creates so much negative opinion, because he has to do a job, and to me he does it. He's not going to be a world class midfielder. That's not him, and that's not. Depending on what you're asking him to do, he's not going to do that. But I think what he's asked to do, for an effective midfield job, he does. He does that. And yesterday, he really stepped up. Yesterday, he was everywhere, he was all over the pitch. I mean, he had that shot, didn't he, with his left foot, which rounded off an absolutely cutting move from us. I know he shanked it just wide of the goal, but it was great. Really great. And I think he knows he's got a run of games in the team there as well. He's going to step up now, and I think between now and the end of the season, I think we could really see him hitting form.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely well put. Kim, just to wrap up the kind of player performances, are there any honourable mentions for you? It seems boring now to talk about Sarr because he just performs game after game after game. Pulled off some great saves again. Are there any other standout performances from you for this game?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, Sar's obviously made some really, really good saves, especially I think at the end actually, where the Villa player who I can't remember was actually a marks and Sar had to come rushing out and almost save our skin. And I don't think that's been mentioned quite as often, but at the time I thought, oh no, this is going in. So I think, yeah, Sar, Moutinho obviously ran the show. I do think Dendoncker played well. But I just can't go away from Fabio's performance. I think, as I've said before previously, it was an all-round performance, and I think he just led the line brilliantly, and he was at the centre of a lot of our good play, whether it be laying off, putting the ball through for other players, getting his shots off. Although he could have done a bit better with the one where he was through in the first half. But yeah, I think he really just epitomised everything about our performance yesterday. So yeah, Fabio for me.
Neil Lewis there with his plug. I think he's on one of those Sport Index websites. I think, but trying to get that price up. But maybe. But listen. So just to wrap up, then, Lage speaking to the media and his thoughts on the game. Obviously pleased. He felt that we had the same. We played well against Leeds. We should have scored more, but the strategy was perfect. But he does think we need to kill a game off, and that has been a criticism or at least a critique of our play in that we do lack sometimes that killer instinct just to finish a game off. Is that something that, is the difference between Europe or not for us, Gully, or is this something that just comes with time, comes with a philosophy, comes with a style?
I think no, he's got every right to kind of be quite annoyed with his forwards. I was saying that after the game, that fixture, the way it went and the way we attacked them and created chances, at the end of it, it shouldn't be Johnny in an own goal on the score sheet because our forwards should be profiting off the back of that. That should be, Podence grabbing a goal, Fabio grabbing a goal, potentially Trincao. Maybe not all of them, but they're at the sharp end of the pitch. They should be capitalising on the situations that they created for themselves because they did really well in causing a lot of havoc for the Aston Villa defence. But fair enough, we're getting players contributing from all over the pitch, but it's not necessarily that sustainable. I don't think. I'm not expecting Johnny to go on a run of 5-6 games in a row where he's having to open scoring for us. But it's a slight concern. We have addressed the goal scoring issue overall. We're starting to pick up more goals at the moment, which is good to see. But the forward line just has to start being a lot more clinical and really punishing teams because, like you say, it probably is the difference between us becoming a top 6 side and not.
Well, if you saw the stat that Sky Sports put up earlier, this calendar year 2022, we're third for the most goals in the Premier League. Really? Which I didn't realise.
No, they wouldn't let you believe it.
When I saw that, I was really shocked. But then when you look back on the other fixtures, obviously we scored 3 against Leeds.
4 against Watford, I think, wasn't it?
4 against Watford.
Yeah.
So
I stacked up on certain games, but it was interesting. It was something because we all kind of have this opinion where we don't score enough, and there we are. I know we're only in April, but so far this calendar year, we're third, so it's going in the right direction for the amount of goals scored. But I think we haven't probably shook that feeling totally that we could do more. I know it's saying that when we're the third highest scorer of this calendar year, but you do sort of get that feeling still. And yes, that was a prime example, obviously, where you think, we could do more. We could put ourselves in a better position.
I think Gully's right, though. It's we're getting goals across all over the pitch, but the forwards are looking so dangerous, creating chances, but we're just not. They're not clinical enough in putting them away. Imagine if they were just slightly more clinical. God knows where we could be in the league because it's not like we're not creating the chances. It's just that Podence, Trincao, Raul to an extent, and all of them, they just don't take the chances enough. If anything, it's probably Hwang that's I think he has got a decent shots to goal ratio, but the rest of them, they're not clinical enough for me.
Potentially.
Yeah, you're right. Like, it's quite a lot of chances created, and it's basically a right back and an own goal for us yesterday, wasn't it? So
There we go. It swings and roundabouts. But listen, we're going to take a short break now. Give a chance to top up your glass if you have one. When we come back, we're going to discuss agents' fees. We're going to discuss one Ruben Neves, and we will have Twitter corner. So we will see you shortly.
Hi all, Gully from Wolves Fancast here, and just like all of you long-suffering Wolves fans, I know exactly what it feels like to be lacking a creative spark here, some outside-of-the-box thinking there, but our sponsors Pixel Yeti Media are here to help. They're a creative agency that cover all of your web design, branding and marketing needs, with our very own wolvesfancast.com, a fine example of their work, so much so that I hear Jeff Shee is looking to do a deal this summer. For now, it's back to the team to ask just where the Diogo Jota money is gone. We may have just had our answer.
Welcome back to Wolves Fancast. Thank you very much to Pixel Yeti Media again and 90min.com and also the sports shop in Kings Winford. It's competition time, ladies and gentlemen. We have prizes galore. We have 2 tickets to give away for the Newcastle game next Friday. And it couldn't be easier to apply. This isn't, a Dan quiz special where we're going to need some obscure knowledge from you. All you've got to do is retweet and follow Wolves Fancast, and 2 Newcastle tickets could be yours. And based on their performance today, they're already on the beach. So it could be a fantastic opportunity to see an away performance. We're going to be announcing the winner next Wednesday, or this Wednesday coming at 9 a.m. So get your name in the hat, retweet the post, and follow Wolves Fancast to be able to be in with a chance of winning those tickets. And we will get that sorted for you. Price, I was talking to you yesterday in the Gifford afterwards. The last time when I was thinking about Newcastle, when we took, I think it was 4-0 to Barnsley. We'd lost in the week, and then we beat them 2-0. Was it 2-0 or 2-1 up?
2-0, yeah. Up
there. Well, an incredible game that was. To be fair, I know we've played them since. And I think it was Drew last time we played there, maybe. But fantastic ground, really, really hospitable fans. Maybe not in the stadium, but at least out of it. So make sure that you retweet and follow Wolves Fancast for a chance to be in the hat for that. So Bruno Lage came out after the game and he said, we're going to offer Ruben Neves a new deal. The news could not be bigger, I think, if he was to sign a new deal. I think it would be absolutely... it would just be huge for the club if Ruben Neves signs a new contract for us. I think the majority of level-headed Wolves fans would understand if he went elsewhere, but I still think that at this moment in time, we can still offer Neves something that keeps us an attractive prospect for him. But does us qualifying for Europe, is that the kicker for you, Kim? Do we need to qualify for Europe to keep Neves? Or do you think that there's enough there if we can offer support in the transfer window for him that will make him stay?
I think we've got the be-all and end-all is that he probably wants European football. I can't imagine him staying. I think if we don't make Europe, I still don't think we're going to invest in the team. Whatever happens, that's almost what's coming out of the club at the moment. Whether that's going to change in the next window, I'm not seeing any signs of it. So I think the only thing that could keep Neves here is if we do get Europa League again, maybe. So I'm not sure that the news of us offering him a new contract's that exciting, because we're obviously going to, you're not just going to not offer Ruben Neves a new contract. But you'd like to think he sounds like he's happy here, but just some of the things that he said in interviews, I wouldn't be surprised if we just decided to cash in on him and we thought that we could invest money into the team, or B, that he genuinely just feels like it's the right time for him to move on to maybe a team that's challenging in the Champions League. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we need to, as long as we get him to sign the contract, even that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be here for years and years to come. But it just obviously makes us, if we did sell him a year later, then obviously if he's got a long-term contract, we can obviously reap even more money for him. So it's I think it's almost a pivotal decision in the summer as to what happens, as to how the club's going to move forward.
Yeah, I think there's every chance it could be one of these sign the contracts to maximise our opportunity and investment, but there's a gentleman's agreement there that if a quote unquote big team or an offer that's too good for him to turn down, we would give him then the blessing to go. But it protects Wolves' financial interests as well. I don't know. I'd like to think in this, he has enough trust in the club and we have enough respect for him that we could offer him something like that. Gully, one thing I wanted to ask you, because obviously when we're talking about qualifying for Europe, we're talking about the Europa Conference League. We're not talking about the Europa League at this point. Does the Europa Conference League actually, it's very, very early into its inception, does it garner any respect when it comes to potential transfers, do you think? Because you've got Slovakian teams with trains that go around pitches, and you've got the doldrums of the European game here. Is it as big as a deal as we make it, the Europa Conference League, in terms of us signing players?
I'd be interested to know what kind of sales pitch we would put together if we qualified for the Europa Conference League to a prospective signing. I don't know. Get Renato Sanchez into a room and play the entrance music to the Europa Conference League as he comes in or something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's anybody's guess what kind of esteem people hold it in, but it's. I mean, European football is European football, isn't it? It's just a bit of a holy grail, isn't it? So when you're seeing Tottenham getting beaten by teams from Malta, that kind of stuff is just nothing else is going to throw up that kind of scenario. You can't shit on these tournaments because they will shit back on you, and clearly that kind of situation occurred in that scenario. Leicester appear to be having a pretty good time in there. So I think it's always important if as a footballer, to show that you can play football in different scenarios and playing, what would it be? Thursday, Saturday, Thursday, Sunday, whatever, playing in different conditions, in different styles. Continental football is still different to the Premier League in so many ways. So going away and, breaking down a team who are going to put 11 men behind the ball because they're from Malta and they're a bunch of part-timers, that should be something that a player like Ruben Neves has to be seen to be capable of doing. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's actually proven that on too many occasions. At being at Wolves, I mean, as a team, we've never been that good at that kind of thing. But it's just little things like that I think, okay, you maybe you do want your move, but ultimately there might be question marks over certain parts of your ability that are stopping people from actually coming in and taking a punt on you as well. So, there's a potential shop window to show people what you're about as well.
Price, from your point of view, as the $1 Million Man said, everybody has their price. What's your price for one Ruben Neves? If you're the one that's signing the checks, and you're the one that's cashing the checks, what fee are you taking? What fee are you agreeing on that he goes for that gives Wolves the most? Let's pretend that they will reinvest all of the money into the squad. What price is he going for you?
Being our resident price man, of course.
Exactly, of course. The price is right.
Price is right.
Yeah.
Do you know what? This is like the endless debate. This is of what price you put on him, because I think whatever you say, someone's going to have like a counter price back. But the figures are so inflated now. I mean, you look at like Declan Rice, that West Ham wants minimum 150 mil for him. So, and he's like seen as the future of the England team. Neves is the future, but also the present, I suppose, of the Portugal team, for a team that wants to go places. So, why would we not ask for like something nearing 100 million for Neves? it sounds ridiculous, it doesn't really, but you think when you think about it, you think, well, why not, given the figures that are involved in football nowadays?
We can't ask for that now because we've shown that we can play without him this weekend, don't we? He's not indispensable.
And to be fair, it's about how much he's worth to Wolves. Like, he's not worth 100 million, but to Wolves, for Wolves to actually replace Neves, it probably would take that. And it might be that we'd have to reinvest it as like 2 players just to.
I honestly think Declan Rice leaving West Ham would cause them to fall apart. That he's that important to them. I don't necessarily see us as being that kind of club to Neves at the moment, perhaps.
Are you basing that on just one performance after?
No, I just don't think. I think we can handle him not being around a little bit better. That's all.
There's a lot of things too. There's the impact that he had if he goes, and there's the message that I say if he goes, he will go at some point. Now, I know I've said that for the last couple of seasons, but it's also the political impact of that as well, as what other prospective signings see that as, look, they've had to sell him. We had that with Jota as well, strangely off his worst, or not his worst season, but like he had an ineffective season for us, but he's gone on to bigger and better things. Neves, we've kind of weathered that storm of losing the Jota, but I don't know, for Neves, a guy who runs games in midfield, losing him, it's going to take a hell of a well-scouted replacement to come in. If he's going to be asked to do exactly the same thing that Neves does now, it will happen. He's going to go at some point, unfortunately, and we're going to have a week of mourning when he does go. Or that week is when we build his statue. But as we said before, he seems like he's happy here. He wants to succeed here. We have to just match that, and it depends who's sniffing around him. If Man United have got a big reboot on in the summer, but that's not really, for me, that'd be a waste of his career going to Man United at the minute. I don't really see that as like a promising forward step. He's better than that. He's better than going to that circus at the minute. It just depends who's coming in for him, and if he fancies that challenge. He could be going to one of the big boys abroad. I don't know whether someone like a City or Liverpool will go in for him. I don't know, but I think he really wants to succeed here. It's unlike it seems weird, but he has set down some roots here from where he's come from in Porto to set down some roots in Wolves. As mental as that continually sounds, but I think Bruno's mentioned it as well, that Bruno also wants the best for Neves as a footballer. He wants him to be at the top of the top, he said. But we've got to match that, unfortunately. We've got to show him. I think the only way that he stays here when we don't have European football is that we've shown him the plan of what we're going to do in the summer. Yeah. We've shown him who we're going to get in. We've shown, look, as we've said on this podcast, that you can sign a new deal. That's the security against the club to get more value for you if the next 12 months don't pan out as per this plan. And we show him who we're getting in, who's going, who's coming in. He'll go, okay, look, we'll give it another 12 months. But if it doesn't pan out, then as you said, Matt, gentleman's agreement, which is commonplace in football, will probably just go, yeah. If someone a certain stature comes in, off he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one person that won't be unhappy about the move, and that'll be his agent. Wolves have spent almost 12 million British pounds on agents' fees between February 2021 and January 2022. The 9th biggest spend in the Premier League, 11.9 million, beneath the so-called Big Six, Leicester and Watford. Wolves' spend was lower than the previous year's layout of 12.5. I mean, listen, that can buy you one Hoover. These kind of
what
figures.
Brand? A Dyson?
What type of Hoover?
A Dyson. A Dyson. One Kiana. This is just one of those things, really. I think unless this is bigger than Wolves, the game itself needs to manage what happens with the agents' fees, and whether that be I don't know how we the game gets around agents' fees. It's decisions made by people in a lot bigger influence than myself. But is that going to be a concern, going forward for Wolves, that actually spend-wise, we get nothing out of agents' fees, Wolves as a club, the player does and the agent does, but we get absolutely nothing out of it. Is this one of those things you've just got to grin and bear it, Kim? Like, agents exist. It's an unhelpful, but it's always going to be there.
Yeah, and I think I'm surprised that we're that far down, actually. I think with the press that we get around the George Mendes stuff, and how much of that is to George Mendes is probably quite high proportion. However, I think, I'm shocked that we're not higher in that table, to be honest. I think it's more of an issue with football as opposed to Wolves. And I can see what you're saying. Obviously, that's one Dana Hoover, which probably isn't the best example because the fact that he's frozen out at the moment. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things about modern football. It is almost like chucking money up in the air, but we wouldn't have signed half of the players that we have done if it wasn't for this agent, let's be honest. So you've got to
true.
grin and bear it, haven't you?
Yeah, I don't agree with the idea that I don't agree with the idea that we don't get anything out of it, because I think ultimately we're in the pocket of an agent, so to speak, where favourable stuff will come as a result if we're dealing with these people on a regular basis. And it's not a bad pocket to be in if you have a look at George Mendes' client list, and we have profited from those kind of situations. So I do think agents get a bad rep just because people suggest that the money's not staying within football and they're always touting players' services elsewhere and things like that. But there's probably a lot of work that goes on with agents in terms of getting players out of clubs, where they're rotting away and their careers could potentially, just disintegrate into nothing, and things where they'll never make the news because it's not a headline. It's not going to be a big enough story for people. But there's probably a good side to the agency, which is the reason why it's so well paid as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's a fair and balanced argument. So then finally, let's do a little bit of Twitter corner. So if you follow us on Wolves Twitter, Fancast Twitter, then you're able to get your questions in and we will answer them. So Dean Marsden, easy for me to say, is Fabio generational? I'm guessing you mean by that, is he a generational talent or not the generation game, I'm guessing. Is Fabio generational for you, Price? Take that as you will.
I thought like this was like a football manager style question. Is he just generated? He's an organic player.
A regen.
He's not a real person. A regen, yeah. Is he generational? Oh. I suppose given the level of investment we put into him, then he's been primed for that reason. He's primed to be the golden boy of Portugal for the next 20 years, maybe. I guess I guess on that basis, you would say, you could argue that he potentially he is. I mean, you don't want to keep the two things go hand in hand, don't they? When you mentioned Silva, and then the price tag comes very shortly afterwards, which you hope isn't going to be like an eternal sort of albatross around his neck, really. But hopefully it's a generational talent, not just for Portugal, but for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Gully, from your point of view, is this someone that you see in 3, 5, 7, 10 years? We're having a conversation about thinking, actually, at the time, we didn't know what we had with him. He was one unbelievable player that he has gone on to become, and we were lucky as Wolves to be part of that, part of his career.
Well, I mean, at the moment, I'll just be excited to see him start 2 games in a row.
Exactly.
At the end of this week. So, I'm just looking forward to him actually having a run of games for Wolves at the moment. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a few football manager aficionados amongst us, and we all know how it turns out for him within the virtual world, and it is pretty astonishing how good he becomes on that game. So hopefully, if he reaches even half of those levels, we've got a serious player on our hands. I think the idea of a generational talent, I don't think he's got the the current skill set to really be generational at the moment. He's still lacking at certain elements. He's not got incredible dribbling ability. He's not finishing every chance that he gets. He's not got extreme pace. So he will be a bit of a slower burner than most. But a good friend of mine who we did a podcast episode on the Pat mentality, which you can listen to as well, suggested he'll score 150. There you go. There's a plug. 150 goals in Europe's top 5 leagues by the time he's 30. So he's got some going. They got some going to do. But yeah, I don't think that's a fair shout. Not necessarily for us, but yeah,
Okay, moving on. Richard Hobbs, who in football would you like to slap in the face when you hear them speak? Kim, I'm sure you've had a boozy night on Broad Street once or twice in your life. Who would you be slapping in the face if you saw them from the footballing world?
I don't know about Broad Street, but so this I read this question
too
earlier.
good for Broad Street, is it? Is that
That's a bit 1990s, isn't it? Broad Street, come on.
You've never fell out of G-Vans and into the road, or you've been to come out of Planet and had a kebab rush or anything like that.
Oh, but now we're going back into Wolverhampton, Planet, back in the day. Anyway, who would I like to slap in the face? This is so easy for me. So when I read this question earlier, I was thinking there's only one bloke that comes to mind, and that is Steve McManaman.
Oh. All right. Join the queue.
Cannot stand that guy on comms. Like, I literally won't watch football when he's commentating. It absolutely drives me mad. No, just no.
Do we have any advance on McManaman, Price?
The first person that came to my mind was Wilfred Zaha. I know he doesn't speak much, but when I just see him on the football pitch, I just want to slap him. He'd probably go down for a dive as well if I did that as well. I tried to.
Yeah, probably would.
Stick with one of them.
Gully, who's facing your wrath?
I don't know. I feel like there's less despicable people around in football these days. So a lot of them are not, especially like a lot of people around the England team and stuff. They all showed their nice side over the summer and things, didn't they? But I mean, I'll always happily slap Ronaldo about if you really want me to. So yeah, I'll be first one to run up and do that.
Somewhere, even if Dan isn't watching, his spider senses have gone off to jump to his boy's aid. Somewhere right now. Moving on then. Moving on. Gumplock. Is Fabio our number one striker now? Personally, I think that's a little premature. I don't think we can write off Raul quite yet. I know, there's some people that already would do that. But I do think that, we should be putting ourselves in a position where the wheels start to turn. We give him more game time, as we've already kind of discussed on this. We get him in a position where next season he can challenge for that number one striker position, because, I think we have to bleed him in with more game time. Simple as that, really. Daddy P, Fernandez has a voice like Kermit the Frog, and I think he could usually use a slap.
I really want to listen to an interview from him now. Just
I think this is the first thing I'm going to do when we go from here. Moving on, Mark Polton. Is it time to start trusting the transfer policy? We could easily have spent close to 40 million on Telles and Sanson, which would have satisfied most of us and made us look more ambitious. But yesterday highlighted that neither would get in our team. Great question, Mark. Thank you. Price, do we trust the process? Do we have solutions within? Where are we in terms of our transfer policy? Because we've seen clubs piss it up the wall and spend and get them absolutely nowhere. Look at Everton, look at Villa. Should we sit back, take stock and trust the process a little bit more?
Well, I mean, you look at the league position denotes that we're doing something right, we're on the right lines. I just think there's always that thought that you don't want to have coming into the season and like a missed opportunity where you think, where if only would have signed X or Y, we could have ended up in 7th place, for example, and got that Europa Conference spot. And there's all, I get it, I understand it. When you see a lot of other teams in the summer and to a lesser extent in January signing players and we're just not doing anything, you get, it builds up inside you. You're thinking, well, why aren't we doing anything? We need, like, all of us here have already, like, at some points this season, gone, like, midfielder, that's what we want, a midfielder. Why aren't we signing one? So that's when the whole Sanchez thing was kicking around. And ultimately, we have, I don't want to jinx it because we are down one midfield at the minute, but we haven't, we've not been chronically worse off for not signing a Renato Sanchez yet. So I do think that they have overall, that they should have our trust. But there's always that, it's just my opinion there, there's always that nagging feeling, where you think, well, maybe we could just do a little bit more so we don't have that missed opportunity feeling at the end of the season. Now, obviously, without getting too much into the weeds of it, you have the difficulty of signing a player who will come in and not necessarily play straight away. Does that then breed a Catroni-like personality in the background? I know, we haven't mentioned him on the pod for a while, have we? Just shoehorn him in there for a little bit. But then you can get someone like him where he signs someone for big money, he comes into the team, he's thinking he's going to play. No, sorry, mate, we're still playing, I don't know, Neves and Joao are still out front too. Oh, right, okay. That guy then festers on the side, on the bench, thinking he should be playing, and he's not. So it's always a fine balancing act. But
I think the issue that we've got is that we need to improve our first 11. You can't really just spend 10 million on a player. That's the reality. You're probably going to need to invest a fair amount of money to get better than what we have. And I think that's the issue that we've got. I think what a lot of Wolves fans are getting annoyed by is the fact that we've just been used to signing decent players for a decent amount of a decent fee. And now suddenly it's almost like we've got to sell to buy. We've got no money at all. And it can almost be quite frustrating just because of how well we're doing and how well we're making what we've got use of, the squad. But it's always a case of, but what if we sign? And that doesn't necessarily mean even if we invest money in a player, who knows? You don't know if they're going to do well. E.g. Villa, look how much they spent and they just looked all over the shop. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? But you'd just like to think that we need to show a little bit of ambition, or else the types of players like Neves and maybe others might start to lose faith, and then it only takes one or two to leave, and you who knows, we're back in the bottom half of the Premier League.
I genuinely think, and people probably won't want to hear this, but there's a scenario where we probably lose, I don't know, say Marcel, we get Morgan Gibbs-White back for the start of pre-season, we maybe get Ryan Giles back as a backup wing back with Marcel away from the club. Who knows, maybe even Adama comes back off his loan because Barcelona don't take up the option. We have Pedro Neto ready for pre-season to have a proper stab at it next season. And we're a better team than we are right now. I honestly believe that because Gibbs-White, having had a full season of football in the Championship, is playing well enough, I think, to be a Premier League footballer. Neto will be a massive, massive plus to us once because it really doesn't look at it. I mean, when he came on, he looks like he's lacking a yard of pace, and that's going to take a bit of time to get up to speed with. And he needs that pre-season, I think, to really give him the best chance to get up to his levels again. And I honestly believe that makes us infinitely stronger without even making a signing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last but by no means least, Stephen Griffiths wants to know, keep it to a back five next season or risk going to a back four? Where are you with this one, Price?
Well, we have the options at the back, don't we, for the five. We're going to lose Sace, I think. So, and we're going to lose Marcel, definitely. I think we've talked about that already. But now we have Semedo and Johnny, so I think we'll just lose Marcel and Johnny will just switch sides. So then we him and Nori on that side, and then Semedo and young Kiana on the other side. So I think we've got enough options there to say as we are, rather than changing it all, going to back four. Don't forget we've also got Bolly's coming back to the dependable. He didn't really do too. I know he had a few misplaced passes yesterday, but he looked fine. Cody, we still got Cody, we've got Kilman, Toto Gomez in reserve as well. I think we've got quite a lot as we are to the stage we are without trying some sort of radical change. I don't know, Bruno might with the pre-season with all his options. That is something he may want to do, but for me, I'd just keep it as a back four. We've got the options to do it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, that's it, boys and girls. Thank you very much for listening to ourselves, whether that be live on YouTube this evening or in podcast audio form or however you consume our content. We really do appreciate you getting in touch with us as well. Make sure you are liking and subscribe to us on those platforms at Wolves Fancast. Appreciate your support, and there's a plethora of content that we pump out week after week. It's not just the podcasts and YouTube videos post game. Gully, you'll presumably be doing your fantastic GTA series on the Villa win. We'll also have the preview show, which I assume is Thursday this week because of Newcastle being Friday. That's right. We've recently did a filmcast episode on the Football Factory in the international break. There's loads of contents in the back catalogue as well if you need to get that Wolves fix over the next few weeks. So, make sure you like and subscribe to us. Thank you very much to Pixel Yeti Media, 90min.com, and the Sports Shop in Kings Winford for their support also. But for now, Kim, if you'd like to say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Gully, if you would like to say goodbye.
Shit on the Villa.
Shit on the Villa. Adam, if you would like to say goodbye.
Mind the gap.
And from me, Matt, take it easy, everybody. Look after yourselves.